The next one, the third and last dogma, is power over authority. This was one of my favorite chapters in the book. Would you summarize?
Oh, sure. Well, it's connected actually to the other lies where, in the second lie, in the second dogma, innocence really becomes an enemy, to the revolution, right? Because if you're innocent of, transgressive behavior, then you are perpetuating a sort of dominance. And in the third lie, you see how authority and innocence are connected, because authority really is established, in large part to protect what is good, to protect what is innocent, to protect what ought to be protected. And the revolutionaries really understood that if all is going to be seen as through a filter of power, we have to disabuse anyone of the idea that authority is rooted in something good and something true, a true stable nature, as you were saying, that is for our benefit. It's for our flourishing. And I think about it with just the human father. I think that that's the best way to understand it. Even if someone who is deprived of a good father understands what a good father is there to shepherd his children to a place of responsibility where they can be truly free, that they can, live lives of virtue and have mastery over themselves. And I think that is connected to why fatherhood in particular is so targeted by the movement. Every revolutionary from Marx to Marcuse understood you have to depose the authority of the father in order to corrupt the society overall. And Engels would write about men need to be tomcats, they need to be licentious. Because what happens then? Once men lose their moral authority, then women become calloused, right? They're not being protected, so they have to kind of create a hard shell around themselves. And then that furthers revolution, because then they are willing to engage in activities that they normally wouldn't have, activities that leave them vulnerable. Sexual activities like that furthers the sexual revolution. And then children become rebellious because the people upon whom it was most incumbent to shepherd them to what a good life is have lost their moral authority. And insofar as they target the father, really targeting God, because the father is, our first introduction into who God is, into the nature of who God is. And I think targeting God in a really deep way, because God is not a father in an analogous way. He truly is father. Human fathers are more fatherly. And so he's the primary analogous. And I think he's truly the target of it. And it was effective. They were, of course, right. That insofar as you target authority in a human level, you really targeted the authority of God himself and attack the logos in that way. And then it's interesting because the people who most disabuse themselves of true authority tend to become the ones who are most compliant to authoritarianism, right? Because you reduce all of any hierarchy, any dominant structure into pure oppressive power. Well, then the only thing there is left to do is to either grab it for yourself or to support those who support the strong man, because you've separated it. You've decoupled it from something truly good and truly in our nature.
Yeah, you quote Jewish thinker Leon Kass, brilliant. And he writes, those who would live without law are destined to live under slavery. Those who would see through authority become incapable of exercising authority and must live under the rule of others. Those who deny covenant are bound to accept the rule of the stronger. That is slavery and tyranny, precisely what the rule of law was first instituted to prevent. Now, I'm always fond of covenant because I am rooted in Scripture, and so is Professor Kass in his Jewish tradition. But the idea that authority is rooted in the divine author of being, who is a father, so that the logos, the eternal word, is the son. It isn't just an impersonal logic. It isn't just an impersonal power. What you find in the prime analogate of the eternal Trinity, it's almost too good to be true. But of course, it's the truth. It's the whole truth, the eternal truth. And as such, you indicate the profound and ironic confusion between people who are striving for authenticity and the truth of authority. You point out the etymological connection between authority and authenticity. The word authentic is from the Greek word authentikos, meaning original, genuine, principle, and from authentes, one acting on one's own authority. We think of this too, practically, legally. We're both authors, and so we have intellectual property. We have authors' rights over the books, the ideas, and that sort of thing. And otherwise, there's plagiarism and so on. But I think that once you have broken the connection between will and reason, once you've broken the connection between the person and the community, and once you've broken the connection between power, which is coercive, and authority, which is profoundly moral, you've basically created a tangled mess that only conversion will resolve, or more violent revolution, deeper subversion of what little remains of, we've only gotten through the first section. And I feared that, the first two sections, I feared that because looking over this book again last night, I don't know if you can tell how unusually marked up my copy is. I read this and then I reread this, for our interview, but then I kind of forgot about the conversation because I'm weighing whether or not I need to use this as a required text in some fundamental theology and foundations courses, because it's not enough to advance the 5 proofs for the existence of God. It's not enough to rediscover the natural moral law that makes us truly human. It's not even enough to recognize that the highest expression of justice in the natural law is religion, where we acknowledge God, where we give thanks and praise to him. Even the pagans in classical antiquity saw religion. But neo-paganism is a kind of willed blindness. And you point this out in a way that is so accessible. And so I feel as though, we have sort of lost the game by forfeiture. I remember in 3rd grade, we lost the championship in baseball because we showed up on Sunday afternoon and the game was Saturday and the coach got it wrong. I feel as though as Catholics, we are losing by forfeiture because we might still be caught up in trying to overcome Dawkins and the God delusion. And that's a profitable enterprise to restore the capacity of reason to know from the natural order the fact that there is a God. But at this point in time, I think that's water over the dam. I mean, that's almost a distraction, because what we're dealing with now is a woke ideology and an extraordinarily efficient cancel culture that is embedded not only in higher education, almost entirely, even in Catholic schools, even as you point out in evangelical schools. I have had friends who taught at the example you use, Azusa Pacific University, at APU, Barbara Nicolosi, the Catholic, Andre Villeneuve, a good friend, a former student. They were like the Catholics looking around and just wondering, what is it that incapacitates our colleagues from seeing the toxin that is just spreading faster and more deadly than COVID, I suspect, in terms of the soul, the spirit of that place. I don't know exactly where it is, and I don't want to single them out and target them, but it's happening in so many other evangelical denominations, institutions, and that sort of thing. And it's also spilled over into the Catholic Church as well. So on the one hand, I apologize for not getting into the 3rd and 4th sections. And I looked at the clock and I realized I'm doing exactly what I suspected I would do last night. And I would get caught up in the remarkable treatment in the first 2 sections